Beaming live on a radio rope from a world near you, it's CKNWR radio station, servicing the city of Adobe skyscraper, the surrounding Etobicoke County, and if weather permits, even further than that. This week we'll be featuring an episode of this evening's show originally aired on July 1st, 1976. Episode 192 is devoted to a survey of the Saltower Sea, the giant saline sea located on the continent of Antorionigh or Vlakenland, depending on whom you ask. Your hosts, John Starboard, Deepak Halliday, Charlie Dust, and Louier Mastodon will interview several guests concerning this geographical oddity, including Teddy Edison of the Geograph Explorers, Adam Firsaugh of the private sector, pop culture correspondent Xavier Badillion, and a native of the Saltower Sea area, Sal Tweeter.
It's this evening show. What do you think about that? It's this evening show. Don't get too excited now. It's this evening show. To the Saltower we go. It's this evening show. It's this evening show. What do you think about that? It's this evening show. Don't get too excited now. It's this evening show. To the Saltower we go. It's this evening show.
Welcome to this evening's show. Tonight our topic has to do with the Saltower Sea and how it has affected our society. As you might know it, the Saltower Sea is a giant saline sea, and of course it is found on the continent of Vlakenland, or Antorionigh, depending on how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it'll be a good show about the Saltower Sea. I've heard that it is so salty that not only do you float in the Saltower Sea, sometimes you tend to levitate in the Saltower Sea. We might be able to just explore some of those experiences as well.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm mostly interested in all those weird Indians that live out there. I hear there's population is growing quite expansively, almost like those heliophiles they got out there.
Deepak Halliday here, and I for one am quite excited to be talking about the Saltower Sea. I used to go vacationing there as a young man, and I once lost a pair of yellow swimming trunks there. They floated so easily on the ocean that they're probably still floating there now. And hoping to find out something a little bit more about these swim trunks today, and that's why I'm excited.
Because the Saltower Sea is such an important part of many people's lives and such an important part of our own history, we're going to focus on it as our subject on this evening's show. So tonight on this evening's show, because we're focusing again, like I said, on the Saltower Sea, we're going to be visiting with a member of the Geograph Explorers, Mr. Teddy Edison, who has spent the last several years studying the Saltower Sea and its formation history. Teddy, thanks for joining us.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me on the show. You know, it's very interesting that you're talking about this gigantic lake of salt water when out here in the desert, salt water's the least of your problems. I find it interesting that this particular body of water brings interest from all over the globe.
So, Teddy, you're in the desert, but you're still talking about water. I'm confused. Is the Saltower Sea, it's in the desert?
Well, I'll tell you, the land around the Saltower Sea is quite arid because of all the salt evaporation that's poisoned the soil. But at the same time, the biome that's developed there has its own unique styling, and it almost looks like the vegetation that we see on other scrubland coasts in the Mediterranean biomes. But the thing about it is, if you go to this place, you face such a different environment that some things you used to think were true are actually quite off their kilter. For example, I've seen formation of salt crystals on a frozen block of ice, but I've never seen that happen when the ice is evaporated, and that's what goes on there.
So you're telling me that there are crystals that appear on water vapor?
The formation of this basin has happened over thousands of years, and as the salt water has evaporated or been taken away by other natural or unnatural means, the salt deposits that are left start to coalesce at the bottom at an ultra-dense saline solution. And when this saline solution has built up enough pressure, well, I suppose you could guess what happens then.
Well, I imagine there's some sort of isostatic rocket that shoots up in depending on how you view time, be it linear or exponential, yet when you take a picture of it day by day, and you might not notice the rocket.
That's exactly right.
It shoots out like a tower or a pillar.
It shoots up like a tower or a pillar that you do not notice.
It shoots up like a very gradual pillar or tower of salt, and it has been doing this for over 1,300 years, maybe 1,700 years. And when it does this, it builds up in the central part of this reservoir, and that is what people refer to when they refer to as a tower in the middle of the Saltower Sea. It's supposedly a very magical place for some folk. The Indians that live there, for example, worship this thing in various forms of their society.
Were you among the first Geograph Explorers to survey the lake and give it its namesake?
I did not survey the original lake. I was still a junior Geograph Explorer at that time. But I did join the project soon after they determined that the biome was completely based upon the presence of the feldspar deposits around the lake. And that's when we really decided to reclassify that as its own specific hypofluid biome.
Woo! All the talk of this salt is making me sneezy.
Yes, it's very true. There's a lot of allergies that are associated with working around this place, but it's such an amazing biome and it's such an amazing part of our globe that I don't mind it. But I do get stuffed up quite a bit, hard on the nasal passages, you can imagine.
Teddy, have you ever experienced blockage in the nasal passages from the saltiness? Have you yourself experienced the allergies?
I've experienced a great deal of discomfort in my nasal passages, such that I have the sensation that they no longer wish to be working with me if you do take my meaning.
Sure.
Mutiny in the ranks.
Now, what exactly does your program support? The Geograph Explorers. What other projects are they working on in and around the Saltower Sea area?
We've gone to Turkaya. We've looked at the flora and the fauna there, tried to determine why there's so much of it. We've got people over in Eastern Tara just doing geographical studies on the university floors. So we have very, very different types of projects going on globally, but my passion, of course, is for this one, based upon its huge significance, I think.
Well, that's great. Thanks for coming on tonight, Teddy. It's been a real pleasure listening to your insight. I'm sure all of our listeners out there can appreciate a large body of salt water that's nearly uninhabitable by humankind. We have a very large desert to the north of us that is quite inhospitable.
And Teddy, I understand you've agreed to come into our program to bring awareness to a certain care that you support. In particular, what is it?
Teddy left, Charlie. He hung up the phone. We can't get him back.
Yeah, looks like Teddy is busy getting back to his passion on studying rock formations.
Well, that's what we get for having a telephone system that's 60 years old. Perhaps in the future we should learn to update these.
That happens, I suppose. I guess I have it written down here. Teddy was on to bring awareness to the Society of Ant Salt Surviving Peoples. So, whatever that is, that might be something that you might want to be aware of.
That's actually the first mantra of Geograph Explorers, is to find your own answer. And I'm glad that we've reciprocated the ideal tonight.
Salamander, and I only come out at night. I am a pink salamander, and I only come out at night. I live my life in the shadow of the water park's biggest sign. Shadow of the water park's biggest sign. I am a pink salamander, and I only come out at night. Salamander, and I only come out at night. Hold me close to the lantern, hold me to the light. You will gaze on my skeleton, you will know my life.
So, now that we know a little bit about the geography of the Saltower Sea and the land surrounding it and its 4,000-mile coastline, that's all well and good to know about that. But what good is a 4,000-mile coastline if there are no animals living on it and no plants living around it? Well, thankfully, that's not the case. Thankfully, it's a rich land. And here to tell us about that is Mr. Adam Firsaugh. He's a very educated man. We're so glad and we're so lucky that we could have him on the show tonight. He even wore a tie tonight. Welcome, Adam Firsaugh.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Well, before you start, can I ask you what that is you have on your tie? It looks funny.
Well, this is a piece of magnite that I've collected from the area, and I keep it on my tie at all times. It's a sort of a holder.
Did you say, is that a piece of volcanic rock you have on your tie? Is that what I'm to understand?
That's right, yes.
That is very funny. I'm glad you have that on your tie. I'm laughing. Jeez. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the flora and the fauna that are around this very interesting region of the country?
Well, the halophilic biome is full of plentiful flora and fauna. The most prominent animals that you would see are the yellow star gorillas living on the coast. They live on the coast, more like the beach of the sea, of the salt sea.
And this halophilic biome, I'm not familiar with that term. Halophilic, what is the origin of that word? What does it mean?
Well, it's the origin is unknown to me, but it's a word that defines a specific area, such as a specific salt-like area that has deposits that have been there for a long time. So if you were to say a halophilic biome, this would be an ecosystem full of that could be characterized by salt and saltiness.
I see. And so these yellow star gorillas that you speak of, I'm supposing these must be in some way uniquely adapted to this harsh saline environment.
Well, adapted is some way a way that some people put it, but another way others might put it, myself included, is that they are more morphed by the biome, the area. You can see this; it's most evident in their eyes. They have a yellow glow to them. It's a yellow acetite mineral eyes. You know, it's more like rocky eyes that are bright yellow. It's due to the ingestion of the minerals around.
So I've definitely seen these eyes from a distance, of course, when my family and I vacation here. But something I've never been quite clear on, maybe you can sort of clear the air on this, is whether their eyes are just, do they have just a higher percentage of these acetite crystals in the tear ducts, or would you say they're more actual, just solid crystals where their eyes should be?
Oh, they are most definitely crystals. I've seen them up close and personal.
So they can't. So I'm guessing these gorillas must also be blind.
Well, it's unclear whether or not they can see, which is a funny thing to be unclear about whether or not something can see. But their behavior does not depict blindness. However, we do not know how yet they perceive the surroundings.
So how valuable are these acetite? That's what you call them. How valuable are these acetite crystals? Would you maybe perhaps find one on an engagement ring, or on some sort of sports ball, a radio ball ring that you might win after a radio ball tournament?
An engagement ring, definitely not. A sports ball contest, something like that, possibly, probably not. But they do have some value to them. A value enough that the yellow star gorillas have been poached in the past, and oftentimes you'll find a gorilla on the beach with his eyes just plucked out, and that's not a good thing.
And these gorillas will be blind, you might say.
that gorilla might be blind.
I suppose it's not a laughing matter. However, I'd imagine these very hard crystals would also exist after the gorilla has passed away, which is why I'm guessing that sometimes on the beach you'll see a small pile of these yellow crystals about the size of your thumb. I'm guessing these are from these gorillas?
It's true. One odd aspect of these gorillas that is unlike any other gorillas we've seen and been aware of is that they tend to bury their dead, and this happens whenever grave sites may be found of these yellow star gorillas, and the eyes, the minerals, the acetite is found in handfuls. because they bury them in the same grave sites.
Mass graves, that's one of the few creatures in the animal kingdom that practices regular mass grave burials. So it's a very interesting part of this biome.
Yeah, so I wonder, besides these yellow-star gorillas, are there further anomalies that only exist in this environment?
Absolutely. The plant life is quite prolific as well. There are these green water oceanites, which are very large amoebas, if you will. I would say they're manatee-sized, about the size of a manatee, a sea cow. They'll beach themselves to graze on the feldspar deposits, the geodeposits.
And these are still single-celled organisms, is that true?
That's true.
So I just want to make sure I'm getting this correct, a single-celled organism that is the size of a manatee.
That's correct. It's hard to understand. They still have the cilia that they move around with, but because of the salt in the air, the high levels of the salt in the air, they will they can sort of float. Mm-hmm. They will float around, and they're very large creatures, very large cells rather, but they can grow, which is unlike other amoebas that we know of.
Yes, and since they seem to like potassium so much, it is fairly common for the tourism industry to have huts on the beach where they sell bananas. So it's quite common to see children running around with bushels of bananas, tossing them at these gigantic amoebas. And the best thing about this is that it's, to use an expression, killing two birds with one stone. Because the amoeba will absorb the banana, and what they will actually do is just absorb the potassium from it. They don't need all the sugars and the fibers and the other minerals that are inside the banana. So they'll end up expelling the rest of the banana. So what you end up having after a wall of these green water oceanites leave is thousands and thousands of flattened out, deflated bananas, which the yellow star gorillas, of course, are happy to leave them of, because to them they love the bananas, but they don't care so much for the potassium. So that's probably why the tourism industry is so willing to do this, because it's killing two birds with one stone. Is great for the environment.
Absolutely, and even the popular beach band around the area has a hit song. It's all about the K, baby.
That's a very interesting observation, that there's a triangular aspect between the survival of these beings and the indigenous people themselves. You know, I've always been curious as to why these two creatures are so popular amongst the local high schools in the region for mascot characters.
There's at least 3 or 4 high schools that I've seen playing throughout the county that the green ocean waterites, and very fierce, very large mascots. They sort of distract from the game, though. If you bring a live one over from the Saltower Sea too, you might have a humanitarian crisis.
Well, you might have a humanitarian crisis, but you also might have a strategic advantage in the game. So that might be one reason why these amazing creatures are chosen as mascots. But I'm no radio ball expert. I don't know.
Yeah, what would you say, Adam, is the reason these creatures are so popular for mascot selection? Is it because they're so strange, or do they offer some sort of helpful power if they're employed?
Well, it's hard to say. They are strange, but they're not necessarily fierce, as mascots tend to be. So, like I said, it's hard to say.
It is hard to say.
Mr. Firsaugh, I'm a bit confused. Maybe I stepped out for a minute, but earlier we had Teddy Edison of the Geograph Explorers on our show, and he had a wealth of credentials as a junior Geograph Explorer, actually joining the crew that visited the lake before it was named, and I'm not clear on your credentials. Would you mind explaining them to me?
Sure, I know Teddy. I've seen Teddy before. We've worked together as on the Geographic Explorer team, and there's no way that whatever he told you is the absolute truth. The halophilic biome is more advanced, more concrete, The Geographic Explorers, they don't know what they're talking about all the time. They have good articles and fine scholars, but oftentimes they're off the mark.
Well, I was more curious. What are your credentials? That was my question.
Oh, I apologize. My credentials. Well, I worked with a team with the Geographic Explorers, and now I've left them due to parting of ways, and I now am employed by just myself, and I study the area. I study the Yellowstone gorillas. I study the green water oceanites. I study all sorts of flora and fauna in the halophilic biome.
So it seems to me, I don't mean to question your authority on the air quite like this, but you're now a self-employed researcher, which means that, do you have any means of income for this occupation that you set for yourself?
Sure, I write, I read, I'm sponsored by several different individuals that have money and care about these findings of mine in the articles that I do write from.
So we have a record right now of the people who have donated to your fund, and two of them are the high schools in the surrounding area that have the green water oceanites and the Yellowstone gorillas as their mascots. So I don't mean to press you too much on this, but it does seem odd that somebody who's self-employed as a researcher for these animals would also be funded by the same organizations that have these as mascots. Do you care to comment on that?
We would be remiss if we didn't preface this with there's been no official charges filed against Mr. Firsaugh, but there are very serious allegations that he has been selling these creatures on the black market to high schools, and I just believe this is a wonderful time for Mr. Firsaugh to address this.
Well, I do really appreciate this evening's show having me on, and I'd like to say thank you and farewell.
Well, there he goes.
No comment, I think is what we say after that. That was a no comment.
And he's out the door. Look at that. But I'd learned a lot about the flora and fauna.
Well, Mr. Firsaugh was a very valuable guest. We'll have to have him on again one of these days.
Like gorillas in darkness.
All right, well, that was an interesting interaction. We're always glad to entertain people. We like to let people have their say, and sometimes it's a very brief say. So, moving right along, we also are interested in not only the Saltower Sea's formation and its inhabitants, we're also interested in its relationship to our own popular culture. So tonight we have brought on a man who's very familiar with this and whose appearance leaves no doubt to the imagination as to what he does, Mr. Xavier Badillion. And we're really glad you're here tonight and are able to enlighten us a little bit on the big impact that this geographical oddity has upon our popular culture.
Oh, so sweet of you to say. I'm so glad to be on the show. I have been looking forward to this all week, and I have been so nervous. You could not believe how nervous I've been, so thanks for having me. Yeah, so this area has shot through and made big waves in pop culture in the last, ever since pop culture was a thing, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose probably the most public way that this part of this country and this unique salty biome has come to people's attention and it's in the public imagination is in the song It's All About the K by the Beach Band. Why don't we just have a listen to that real quick?
If you go to the western slopes, you will surely know that the land has been exposed by the ebb and flowing of the water of the sea. The effect is clear to see, and all along the shore is potassium galore. If you go to Cape Bay, there you will survey an expanse of golden gray, free for you to take. You ride your bike, you rev all day. You can pass the time away, and if it's work or play, there's just one thing to say. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about K, baby. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about the K. There's a party at my place. We'll drink banana shakes and we'll make the daylight fade as we contemplate the meaning of this salty place and how it does persuade us in our ebb and flow. There's just one thing to know. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about K, baby. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about the K. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about K, baby. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about the K. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about K, baby. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about the K. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about K, baby. It's all about the K, baby. It's all about the K.
That's all about the K, baby.
That's all about the K, baby. That's right. And you can see the music video, and you can see a lot of the interesting animals that are featured on the beach in this 4,000 mile long beach. But something you may have noticed in this It's All About the K Bebe music video is all the funny bathing suits people are wearing. And this is a kind of bathing suit called the Beach Band, and it has nothing to do with the band called the Beach Band, which made the song. But it's just a single piece of swimming suit cloth. I would say it's probably tend to range from 3 to 4 inches wide, and they ended up being hundreds of yards long, and you just end up wrapping them around the person who's wearing it. So some people say it looks like a mummy when you put one on, but as you can see, it was sort of flattering, and so I don't say it makes people look like a mummy. I wouldn't say that to my girlfriend.
Is it conductive at all? Do you worry about electricity when you're near it?
You may worry about electricity when you're near it, but that's not because of the suit itself. It's because electricity is naturally, if you're near a lightning storm, it's going to strike you whether or not you're wearing this beach band or not. Now, a different kind of swimsuit that you might want to avoid if you're in a lightning storm on around the Saltower Sea or anywhere for that matter is a sequined rain doll. Now, these sequined rain dolls, this is what you call people who are wearing these sequined swimsuits, and these are made out of a very specific type of metal that is extra conductive. And if you're wearing this whenever a lightning storm is nearby, you are almost certainly going to get struck by lightning and you will die.
Wow, that's pretty extreme. Would you say that I'm sorry, I forget what you called it, the mummy swimsuit?
It's called the Beach Band.
The Beach Band, right. That swimsuit, would you say that it serves a purpose other than fashion? Is there something?
It serves no purpose other than fashion, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
That is why it was featured in that music video, and it was actually, you can look at other beach music videos from that era, bands such as Cool Customer and Golden Cucamundo and Puma Race, and all of these bands just had these kinds of music videos where it's pretty much just people on the beach dancing, having a good time, and a lot of them, you might see them in beach bands and also in sequined rain dolls. Be rest assured that these were probably not the real thing. Too dangerous. But you know what? That's not the only way. Music isn't the only way that the Saltower Sea has gotten to pop culture. In fact, you are probably all familiar with maybe like one of our country's favorite kinds of chips are the Saltower Sea potato chips. It's sort of like a dare kind of food. Like you might go to a sandwich shop and your dad might get a bag, but he's not going to eat more than one. He may not even eat them at all. But the thing is, they're very extreme chips, and they look real harmless. They have nice packaging, yellow. They have lots of they have a yellow monkey on the front. But the thing is, once you eat one, it makes you so thirsty that you want to die. And I've had one, a single chip, and I just could not stand it. I just wanted to get that chip out of there. But you know what? I couldn't do it because I'd already eaten it. And so what I ended up doing was drinking a lot of water, and that's what you have to do. And so this became a real big problem back maybe 10 or 15 years ago. You probably read this in the newspaper when all of these fraternities and all these secret clubs that happen in colleges, sometimes there were clubs that had meetings in castles around colleges, and they would take these potato chips and they would dare people to eat 2 of them. And sometimes they would, and well, I don't think I have to tell you how bad that ended up.
Yeah, those are tragic stories from the university's past. Luckily, that kind of hazing ritual doesn't go on as much anymore, but for probably 10 or 15 years there, you couldn't even bring these chips into the country. They were made illegal by the powers that be. Senators all voted and said, we're putting a block on Saltower Sea salt potato chips.
That's true. That's right. They voted and said we're not going to take it. But then, of course, there's the repeal of this act whenever it was decided that the chips themselves are not the problem, but only the abuse of the eating of the chips. So because of that, all over the country, you will be able to find chips that are similarly branded with a yellow monkey or a yellow gorilla. But surely these are not the true chips, because once you eat them, you will know. You can eat several of them and you're fine. So these aren't the true potato chips we're talking about. The true potato chips can only be found along the 4,000 miles of the Salt Sea coast.
That's very interesting. How many, is there nutritional facts on these chips? Is there a serving size? How many comes in a package?
How many chips? Oh, the amount of chips that comes in a package varies, but it's anywhere between 4 and 8.
And what do you suppose would happen if you were to eat 8 Saltower sea salt potato chips?
You cannot eat 8 Saltower salty seaside potato chips. You cannot do it.
Oh my.
You can try, but you will die. That's actually what it says on the packages. It's actually, you can try, but you shall die. Sorry.
You can try, but you will die. That's right.
Tourists end up getting these a lot and you might get into trouble if you eat these chips, but you know what? If you're a tourist and you don't want to have the chips, don't worry. There are all sorts of other fun things to do along the coast. For instance, you can go rent a canoe, and the canoes are great along the water because it's so thick that the canoe just glides across the top. It barely even touches the water. It's almost like canoeing across the pavement. It's so sturdy, this water. But there's all sorts of fun, adventurous things if you're a tourist you can do, including canoeing, and you can do also saltwater archery, which involves taking parts of the what's that tree called? It's called it's from the willow peach tree. You can take a switch from the willow peach tree, make a bow and arrow out of it, sort of like a rustic thing you can do there. You can do some archery over the ocean.
What are the targets that are aimed for?
The targets that are aimed for are people on canoes, if you can believe it.
I believe it. It's a wacky place, Saltower Sea.
It is, yes.
What else do you think about the pop culture out on the 4,000 mile strip? Is there anything else that's trending, that's becoming more and more spectacular in the minds of the rest of the world?
Well, yes, there is. In fact, not to go back to music too quickly here, but there's a style of music that has originated there, which is, I feel like, is quickly catching on stylistically across the country, and it is that of salt surf. And what this entails is salt surf, and pretty much what that entails is lots and lots of reverb. It's very slow, and there's so much reverb that you cannot tell one note from another. You know what? Maybe I'm just too old for this sort of thing, but that I just do not like it. But you know what? It's a hot item these days. People are picking up on it.
So there's like a reverb in these geodesic domes that are built upon the shoreline? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, the only way to get this kind of reverb is to build a geodesic dome, and because of the shape, the geometry, and I'm not a mathematician, but somehow the math works out so that whenever, let's say you're in the middle of one of these geodesic domes and you clap once, and you clap and it sounds like this, that clap will echo across each of the the sound wave will bounce off each of the triangles of the geodesic dome, and it will bounce to a different triangle, and that triangle will transmit it to a different one, and that triangle will transmit it to a different one, and it will bounce to a different triangle, and that triangle will transmit it to a different one, and that triangle will transmit it to a different one, and that triangle will transmit it to a different one, and it will keep doing this forever.
That's interesting. It's particularly interesting because I know that there are a few geodesic domes in the greater Adobe skyscraper area that have been constructed, that they don't have this effect. Is there a reason why the reverb is so much more amplified around the Saltower Sea area?
Well, again, I'm no mathematician, I'm no scientist, but my guess. Well, so the thing is that these geodesic domes by the beach, they're very shiny. To me, the texture of these domes looks very much like the sequin rain doll swimsuit that are just made out of bright silver, mirrory, sort of like rainbowy finish. And so my supposition is that these reflect sound so much more, and that's what causes the reverb to be so profound, if you follow my meaning.
I do. So it might have something to do with the lightning storms that happen around the Salt Sea area that...
It may, yes.
Well,
It may.
thanks a lot for coming on the show, Xavier. I'm glad you're able to enlighten us a little bit as to what's happening in the intersection between our popular culture and the Saltower Sea.
I'm happy to be there, and there's so much more to say, so, maybe I'll be back in the future sometime.
That sounds great, Xavier. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
They tell you I'm a criminal. You tell me that you wash that thought away. But I admit the vibe I get, it's not enough to make me believe that. So someone hits a yellow star, and someone has a very decent meal. A typical play of a typical day, the typical way that life is out here. Don't pay any mind, don't give any credit to it. That makes it incredible. Don't pay any mind, don't give any credit to it. That makes it incredible. Don't talk about us. Some people here don't like that stuff, but I cannot help but talk about yourself down, you say, I got it down. Well, some days it hits you right on the head. 11 miles, 11 days, 11 months, 11 ways, 11 hours, 11 handshakes, 11 times, 11 takes. 11 is 11 less than what it was last I checked. Set yourself down, you say, got it down. Well, some days it hits you right on the head. I don't think you would know my name now. My name now. Don't talk about us. Some people here don't like that stuff, but I cannot help but talk about what I might see or have seen or will see. Don't talk about us. Some people here don't like that stuff, but I cannot help but talk about what I have seen. Don't pay any mind, don't give any credit to it. That makes it incredible. Don't pay any mind, don't give any credit to it. That makes it incredible.
Well, we've been talking a lot about the Saltower Sea this evening, and I hope you've gained a new appreciation for some of the various features and some of the various viewpoints on this interesting location. But we thought we'd actually go to the heart of the matter and talk to someone who actually lives there, because they could probably give us a better idea of what it's like and how it feels to be there than any of these speculators. So tonight we have one in Dan who's agreed to talk to us on the phone. He lives there in the town of Bacon Baco, and his name is Sal Tweeter. Thanks for calling in, Sal.
Hey, let's get this straight. You called me, okay? I had to walk 4 miles to this phone. What is this, radio show?
Yeah, that's right, Sal. We're just filming a radio show. We're out in Del Darn. We're way far away. I know it's only, oh gosh, it's probably not even 5 o'clock in the morning there, but we do appreciate you talking to us and just giving us a little bit of an idea of what it's like to live on the banks of the Saltower Sea.
Yeah, we don't put numbers on time out here. That's something that you people do. I don't even know the meaning of time anymore. With the 5 or the 6, what's the point? It's kind of just all blurred together, blanket noise.
That's fair to say. You know, if you don't establish yourself a system of time, then I suppose you don't have to understand time. That makes sense. Could you just tell us what it's like to live in this environment? What it's like having such a high concentration of salt around you? And I don't know, what do you like to do for fun? What do you do on a night off? What do you do on a night on?
Well, typically I go out with my crew, and we have 3 or 4 motorbike hangout spots. Usually roll a die, 6-sided die, to see which one we go to. Typically go to the 3rd spot. I don't know why. Seems like that's how fate has decided, and it's typically pretty loud there. Lots of dirt bike motors. We just rev and rev and rev and rev. Then whenever it seems like it's time to go home, we just go home. Again, we don't have time out here. Sometimes we're out there far too long.
So whenever you're out there, revving your bike and jumping over these landscapes. What sort of landscapes you're jumping over? Are these salt dunes? Are these sand dunes? Are these piles of dead logs?
Well, that depends on the season. If we've had tidal activity, you might be dirt biking over amoebas, which that's the safest season to ride in, because if you crash, you'll just sink into them. You won't hit large shards of salt. If you get us in a non-tidal season, it can be very dangerous.
I guess that's part of the excitement.
Yeah, whatever that means.
I know what you mean.
So, what do you think is the typical cuisine around the area for you Indians?
The typical what?
The cuisine.
Oh, like what we eat?
Right.
Well, mostly eat salt-based life forms. I know you people like to cherish yellow star gorillas and act like they're some kind of trophy or sports fanatic super beings, but they're just food to us.
Yeah, that is interesting that you feed on primates. Some people think that would qualify you to be somewhat barbaric.
Well, we just dig up their mass graves once they're dead. It's not like we go out and actively kill them. But if I do hit one in my motorbike, I will stop and eat it.
You're sort of like primate scavenging people. Is that your main source of food out there, or is there any sort of vegetable matter that grows in these conditions that you prefer to eat?
There are a few cactus that have saline shards protruding from their gelatin bodies, and if you pour water on the cactus, you can eat it.
You might be classified as dirt bike scavengers.
Yeah, if you want to put a name on it, but I mean, like, there's really no point.
Well, what do your homes look like? Where do you live? Teepees? Cabins? Tents? Houses?
It's not like we all live in the same house or same type of dwelling unit. I live in a geodetic dome.
Must be very loud there.
Well, we don't talk in there.
No talking at home. That's an interesting rule to have. Now, it's also quite curious to me that you're one of the few cultures that established a road system without having cars.
Well, that was easy for us to do because we didn't have to worry about these arcane concepts of front or back or one way or two way. There's only the salty side of the street and the less salty side of the street.
So you're telling me that all your driving rules and regulations for this, I guess, motorbike traffic that you've got going on in your city is governed by saltiness? Saline concentration?
That's just what we call it.
So it seems to me that if you're so obsessed with eating salt and having salt and being around salt, that most everyone, when driving on their dirt bikes, would be driving on the salty side of the street. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know anybody who drives on the less salty side.
So it seems like this road system may not be very effective if people are going every which way, all on the salty side. Why bother building the non-salty side?
If you want to judge it like that, yeah, you could poke a hole in it.
Sorry, I'm not trying to poke holes in it. But I will judge it like that. You know, I've read a little bit about the traffic system down where you are, and one of the problems with it is that all the traffic on the salty side leads into your community, and there are no unsalty paths that lead out of the community. So, which tends to, I mean, if you're going to be negative, you'd say it might, it's trapping people. I don't know if you see it the same way though.
I never began or ended in this city. I'm just here. And that's how most people here think too.
Okay.
So that's curious. So if you were to give someone directions to your house No, don't give us directions to your house. Why don't you give us directions to the grocery store closest to your house in your own way?
Well, the closest grocery store, that would be this mass grave burial just outside of my house. And you just go across 2 salty paths, a less salty path. You pass by 3 salty paths, and then you're there.
I see. Pass by 3 salty paths from my house and you're there. Well, from the mouths of the people who really know what's going on, a little glimpse into what life is like living on the banks of the Saltower Sea. I really appreciate you agreeing to talk to us tonight, Sal. It's very inconvenient for some people, but I appreciate your positive attitude.
Thanks, yeah. Can I go?
Sure, yeah. Goodbye.
It's this evening show. It's this evening show. It's this evening show. Don't get too excited, though. It's this evening show. It's this evening show. It's this evening show.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of This Evening's Show. We'd like to extend our thanks to the Geograph Explorers and Teddy Edison for volunteering some of their knowledge. To Adam Firsaugh, thanks for coming on and defending yourself. Xavier Badillion, again, thank you for the pop culture update and the Indian that we did talk to from the Saltower Sea area. So thank you for coming on. And of course, thank you, the listener. Until next time, it's This Evening's Show.